Today's Rolston Hockey exclusive. I'm joined by a 2010 12th overall pick by the Anaheim Ducks, under 18 gold medal winner and voted best defenseman of the tournament, 2010 OHL Memorial Cup champion with the Windsor Spitfires, played for the U.S. Olympic team in the 2014 Sochi Games. In 2016-17, voted into the NHL All-Star Game. Currently in his 10th NHL season, the total of 679 games played. This guy loves to play golf, schnarps and euchre. Decent at video games. I've known him since we started playing hockey together at about 7 years old. Always a true professional. Cam Fowler. How we doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
What's going on? How are you? Are you out in California right now?
Yeah, out in Cali here, just with the wife and the pup, and just crazy times with the quarantine, man. So just trying to stay safe and take care of everybody.
Are you able to get some home workouts in, or stay active as much as you can right now?
Yeah, so I'm actually lucky. I have, or I was not lucky, I guess, but I was rehabbing an injury from before this whole thing happened, and in those guidelines, you can still continue to go to the rink and get your treatments and your workouts. So I've been able to do that and stay on top of some things at home too. We have a Peloton coming here soon, so be able to.
Or what?
Yeah, not a big bike guy, but the wife loves it, and so that'll help with some conditioning and trying to do all I can to stay fit and for whenever this thing turns around.
Yeah, for sure. So you're from Detroit. We played together for 10, 11 years with at Honey Baked. Prior to that, you played for Farmington Flames, I believe.
Yeah, Farmington Fire, I think it was.
Fire, okay.
Yep.
Talk about some of those early days, when we're 8, 9, 10, we're going to Silver Sticks or Quebec. Did you ever play in the brick tournament? I can't remember.
I did. Yeah.
I had a swim meet, so I wasn't able to go.
Well, you missed a heck of a time, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, talk about off the top of my head, the brick and Quebec tournament. Just I felt as I got older in my career and still just talking with guys like you, it's like guys still talk about those tournaments as being some of the best times of their playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I just recently, a buddy of mine from back home went with his Bell Tire team to the Quebec tournament as a coach, and we were just kind of reminiscing about what it was like for me. And honestly, there are games in that tournament that I still remember. There are, living with the Billet family, going to the snow park. That whole tournament is one of the best experiences of my life. And the brick tournament as well. Like, there are two very different tournaments.
Right.
Quebec, you have teams from all over the world. It's like the biggest peewee tournament in the world. The brick is also a major tournament, but it's literally inside a mall in Edmonton, which is just kind of crazy. Like, we didn't leave the actual mall for probably 10 days. You just have the hotel, the amusement park, but you're playing in the middle of the mall, and they have the roof is glass, so there's sun that's coming in. So we all wore eye black and stuff. Like, you feel super cool, but it's really not that cool as like a young kid. But honestly, playing these tournaments are some of the best memories of my life.
That's great. At that same time, one of your other true sporting loves was baseball. You were a pretty decent player. Talk about that a little bit. I mean, I just remember, at that time, it seems like today everybody's got to play spring hockey, and they almost play year round at 6, 7, 8 years old. And I know for us when we were younger, things have changed, but at that time, spring came around and we all went our separate ways until the next fall for the hockey season.
Yeah, I know that things have changed, and there's a lot more resources now that kids have than even you and I had back in the day. But I still think it's important to have some balance in your life, and baseball was always that release for me. Like once hockey season ended, I was fully invested in baseball, and I honestly, you can get away with it as a kid, but I wouldn't even touch my hockey equipment until the next season started
Yeah.
out. It gave me a little bit of balance. Baseball, when I was growing up, I was equally passionate about both of them. And it just let me be outside. Obviously, it's a much different sport than hockey, but I do worry a little bit nowadays about kids getting burnt out and playing 11, 12 months out of the year. And I know there's. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, just that the training's totally different from, when we were growing up. I mean, there's more resources, the training equipment guys are using on the ice. I mean, it used to be we would just go skate around cones and shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very simple back then, that's for sure. And in parts it's great. These kids, I mean, you see it already, how kids at 18, 19 years old can jump right into the NHL and make an impact. That was a little bit less of the case when I was younger, but and that's because of all the resources the kids have now. But I still think we have to be careful about burning these kids out, because once you get to the professional level, I mean, like I do, as fun as it is, it's a grind on your body physically and mentally. And if you don't have some time in between, especially as a kid, it'll be a tough road.
For sure. So when we were growing up, we played for Honey Baked, and we played out of Oak Park Arena. That's actually where Rolston Hockey Academy is now. And I can remember, a lot of memories, but running the hill behind the arena for our training camp when we were 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually remember, I don't know what year it was, but when that whole blackout across, the Midwest and the East Coast happened, we were actually on the ice at Oak Park, and it just went black.
Yep.
And, those are some of those fun memories that we had. Just, that arena is so old. I feel like every person that's played hockey in Michigan at one point or another has played at that rink.
It feels like it for sure, doesn't it? I mean, I haven't been there in a little while, but I still remember that rink like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
You walk in, you have the little lobby there where the parents could stay warm. You had the snack bar to the right. But just honestly, to this day, it's some of the best ice I've ever played on. Like, yeah, fast and firm. Yeah, it was. I mean, it sounds silly, but when we were growing up, if we had a big game against Caesars or Bell Tire, and you kind of had a full stands at Oak Park, it was unbelievable.
Do you remember those games? I mean, I can just remember Thursday we'd have a game against Caesars or Bell Tire, CompuWare, and it would be Monday or Tuesday, and I'm sitting in 7th grade, and I'm like, man, 6:30 Oak Park Thursday night. What a game it's gonna be! And
absolutely,
we had the old wooden stands there, and man, those were some great times and memories.
Have they changed the seating there, or is it
still? But yeah. So Brian Rolston, he's done a nice little makeover with it. It definitely is the same structure. I mean, not much has changed, but there's some upgrades. New boards. He put in a brand new gym down in the basement, which I didn't even know there was a basement.
Yeah, I've never seen the basement.
And that first locker room there, that's completely redone. I mean, it's very nice for the kids. So
I don't know if you remember, but especially when we were really young and we were just learning, how to hit and everything, those boards were too high and they stuck out. So if you took a nasty hit or something, you were taking that right in the ribs.
I'm pretty sure he took those boards out 2 years ago.
Oh, I love that, man. I love that.
It was the best.
It's old school, baby.
It is, exactly. So you move on from Honey Baked, and we both were fortunate enough to go play at NTDP. How was your experience there personally?
Yeah, it was. You know, I owe a lot to that program. I think for preparing me for pro hockey. I think that program expects a lot out
Yep,
of us.
absolutely.
It's a very very rigid structure. You kind of your days are pretty much planned from you right from the start. So it the biggest surprise to me, I guess, was kind of the lack of freedom I had. But at the same time, like
In the sense
you're
of like
there.
the structure of it.
Yeah, well, just as because we're juniors and seniors in high school, like for me, it was just hard because all my friends
Yeah,
were
yeah,
doing all this stuff, what normal high schoolers do, and it was just different for us. Our
right.
days were school, you know how it went. Then
Yep,
we'd be at the rink from 3 to 6, go home, eat, study, and do it all over again, and then go play on the weekends.
yep.
Um, so it just took me a little while to get used to that, I guess. But all of it was worth it for not only how it mentally prepared me, but physically. I mean, those are those days that we had where we either had boxing practice or
I don't think they
training
have
with.
that there anymore. I might be wrong, but I think they got rid
Oh,
of it.
they don't have it.
I,
Oh,
I don't know. The last I heard, but
yeah. Well, as good as I do how,
how
like,
much
when you woke up that morning and you had boxing practice, you
do you remember the testing days where we would have to run the 10-10?
yes.
For
Oh
anyone that
yeah.
doesn't know,
Yeah.
that was you would put the treadmill on a 10 incline in 10 speed, and you would think, okay, run for 20 or run for 30 and then rest. The test was get on and run as long as you can until you fall off.
Mhm.
So, the physical element of the program and everything. I think for me, I think you could attest to this is the mental side of it. You
Oh yeah.
can't really prepare yourself for what's going to come, but I think that's a real awakening. Living at home when you're a freshman and sophomore in high school, and then moving into with a family for the first time, and just being thrown in a completely uncomfortable environment, which
Yeah.
really sets you up and prepares you.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It is a mental test for sure, and it forces you to grow up quickly, which I think it's designed to
Right.
do that. And it forces young men to mature and realize that if they want to pursue this, that this is what it's going to take. So
Yeah.
I'm at the end of the day, I'm super thankful that we had the opportunity to do that.
Right. So after NTDP, you were committed to Notre Dame, and
Mhm.
that would have been the first time. Let's see, since we started playing together at about 7, that we were not going to be on the same team, which is crazy. So
Yeah.
going to that summer, and things changed. You ended up going to Windsor to play for the
Hmm.
Spitfires, and I ended up doing that a little bit later into the season, going to play in Windsor. But talk about your decision process. Everybody has their own path and their own what works for them. Why
Hmm.
did you think or believe at that time that that was going to be the right personal decision?
Yeah. So there was quite a bit that went into that, and still to this day, probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But for me, I was in a unique position because, unlike you guys, I still had another year to play before I
Yep.
was getting drafted. Um, so being a late birthday, I was getting drafted with the 92s, and you don't really know at the time when you're young if the NHL is a possibility. Like for us, it always seems like a dream.
Right.
We have all these guys that we look up to, but as you get older, you have people telling you that it could be more of a real possibility and you could be a potentially high pick. So in that moment, I wanted to get myself prepared for pro hockey because it's all that I knew how to do. It's all that I was interested in.
Yep.
And just for me personally, that was more suited towards the Ontario Hockey League and what they had to offer playing. I think, well, we were lucky enough to win the Memorial Cup, but we probably played upwards of 90 games that year.
Yep.
Whereas in a college schedule, I think, you're maybe 35, 40, correct me if I'm wrong, if
Yep.
I don't, something along those lines. But it was mainly just a gamble on myself to try and put myself in the best position to get drafted, and no disrespect to Notre Dame or that program or what they have to offer. It was always a dream of mine to go to Notre Dame, and I'm super thankful that they gave me the opportunity. But just in the position I was in, at being a potential high pick, I wanted to put all of my eggs in that basket and bet on myself and focus on hockey.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we ended up going to Windsor. We had a pretty decent team when we were there.
Yeah, we sure did.
We won the OHL that year, went on to win the Memorial Cup, and I think we swept the first round, swept the second round, went down 0-3 to Kitchener.
Mm-hmm.
They had they had Landeskog, Skinner, and then
Jet
Morin, and then we came back, won Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then swept the rest of the OHL and went to the Memorial Cup. We were roommates at the Mem Cup. And
yes, we were.
We brought a Nintendo 64 system, didn't we?
Absolutely.
We had some serious battles in there.
Yeah. You remember too the way that tournament is set up. We played on Wednesday, finished that game, and then we didn't play again until Sunday or something in Brandon, Manitoba. So we put some serious work in on the N64.
We had some great coaches there. We had Boogie and DJ Smith, Bob Jones. Mm-hmm. We're at the Memorial Cup. We played Wednesday. We played Wednesday, and then we didn't play until Sunday. So Thursday's practice in the middle of the Mem Cup, we had a 3-on-3 tournament.
Yeah, we sure did. We sure did. Yeah.
I just remember, that power play it was you, Ryan Ellis, Adam Henrique, Taylor Hall, Zach Cassian.
Yeah.
All those guys.
We had a pretty special team.
Yeah.
Really special team.
Had some fun there. We actually ended up having the same billets as well.
Yeah.
That was, great house, great family, the whole works. So we move on from there. You win, you go into that summer, it's your draft summer. And, at that time, everybody's talking, there's projection boards all over the place, let's say. And, I think in your mind, correct me if I'm wrong, but at that time, you're hearing, possibly thinking, around top 5 area, something in that general realm. And I'll never forget watching the draft, and all of a sudden, you start slipping, and you ended up going, was it 11 or 12?
12th.
12th overall. And, in hindsight and looking at it now, probably one of the best things that could ever happen to you.
Yeah, for sure. I a lot of people ask me about that draft because one of the things, it happens in any draft. If there's a projected pick that starts to fall a little bit, all of the TV attention and the cameras go on that person. Yeah. And so I've watched it back, and you're 18 years old. You don't really know what's happening or why it's happening. But I knew that I had, you hear a lot when you're about to get drafted, and I knew that Anaheim was high on me as a player, and I just don't think that they expected it, that they could get me at 12. But that's how it ended up working out. And Scotty Niedermayer had just retired. Obviously, I'm no replacement to Scotty, but there was an open spot at D that I could compete for, and I just felt very valued right from the very start in that team. And at the end of the day, I've been here for 10 years now. My wife and I call this home, and that never would have happened unless that draft played out that way. So everything happens for a reason.
Right. Talk about, you mentioned him, and I remember, your first year playing pro, but your relationship with Scott Niedermayer and maybe the impact he had with you turning pro, and just, I believe you lived with him your first year, and, maybe
Yeah.
just some of the conversations or some of the knowledge that he tried to pass on to you.
Yeah. So him and his family were nice enough to bring me into their home as a young player, and his wife Lisa and their 4 kids. So they already had a pretty busy house at the time, and they were still generous enough to invite me in. And Scotty taught me a lot, but the main thing with him is when you were 18, like, we used to eat just like whatever,
Right.
pizza, and I didn't know how to take care of my body. I didn't know how to, that really the night before the game is the time to prepare, and it's the time to get your nutrients and your stretching and whatever it might take, because that's what it takes to have a long, healthy career. And I really needed a lot of that information as a young player, because you just don't have it. You don't see it long term like these guys do. Scotty, who had an amazing career, knows what it takes to have health and be able to sustain a healthy career. And that was the main thing that he helped me out with. And anyone who knows Scotty knows that he is a man of few words and won't really impose at all, or force you into talking to him about anything. But anytime I had a question, he was there for me, and when he spoke, I certainly listened, and I'm forever grateful for him allowing me to have that first year with him.
Yeah, well, what a great experience to kind of have a guy take you under your wing and really help you out there.
Yeah.
How about I believe I was there for it actually, but your first game playing in Detroit at the old Joe Louis. Growing up a Wings fan, how cool was that for you at that time?
Oh, it was incredible, and that was my first NHL game ever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and at Joe Louis, like a place that for you and I growing up in the Detroit area was just, Joe Louis was like the Mecca, So the whole day honestly was just a blur. I could barely sleep that day, like, just so excited. I still have the picture, because Randy Carlisle was gracious enough to let me start.
Yep.
So I'm standing on the blue line. I'm looking across, and like, there's Nick Lidstrom. It's just, it's insane. Someone that I looked up to my whole entire life, and never ever could have imagined that I could share the same ice surface with them. And here I am at 18, getting the chance to stand across from him and play in my home city, my first NHL game. It was just an incredible day. We got spanked for nothing. It's like, I don't even know if we had touched the puck, honestly. But be that as it may, it was an amazing experience and something that I'll never forget.
That's so good. Well, I remember after your first year, I came out to Anaheim. Actually spent, I think I was there 1 or 2 nights at the Niedermayers.
Yeah.
Then you and I packed up the old Ford Explorer, I believe it was at the time.
Oh, yeah. Eddie Bauer edition.
Yeah. And you and I headed cross country. The two of us did a little 5 or 6 day golf trip. But one part of that, and maybe you want to take it, is driving through Utah. Something happened.
Yeah. So me and Kenny and I are driving through Utah. We're at 215 to 230 miles until empty, and we see a gas station. We're like, no problem. This is 230 miles is a long way to go. And we're young, we're enjoying our time on the road, time passes, and all of a sudden I look down and we're grinding. We're at 10, now we're at 5. There is not a soul in sight.
And we lose phone service because we're in the middle of the mountains. We got
yes. Yeah, like you picture Utah, like these beautiful red rocks around us, and there is nothing. And I'm still staying a little bit positive, like I think we can make it. But for anyone that's run out of gas before, the car starts shaking. It literally has no more fuel. So we pulled over to the side of the road, and I still don't know how, but we somehow figured out the right people to contact that could come. And like, I don't know how we got service. I don't know if that's clear to you or not, but like we somehow figured out what to do.
I remember sitting in the car, and I think we walked like 2 or 3 miles to like get service, and then we had somebody that was going to come out and basically bring a gallon of gas to get us, or whatever the case was. But
yeah,
that was going to be 5 hours from the time that we contacted them. We sat in the car and played our own version of one-on-one euchre and hit golf balls off the side of the highway into the mountain.
Yeah,
that was.
And like only got enough gas to get to the next city.
Yep.
And they charged us $300 to come give us whatever 2 gallons of gas. $300. That just got us to the closest town. Like, what were Kenny, like 10 miles away maybe from the next town?
Yep.
Just so 250 miles basically. We ran out of gas.
Needed a little bit more.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Good times.
So what different little story here, but now with what you're doing, over the 10-year span of your career, how is your training, and more specifically your summer training, changed, adapted, evolved, whether it's off ice or on ice?
Yeah, it's pretty much changed from year to year. I think the older you get, the more you focus a little bit more on injury prevention. A lot of shoulder stuff, a lot of hip stuff to make sure that your body can withstand an 82-game season, which is difficult. So my first few years, I had to let my body develop quite a bit. I was tall and lanky, so it was a lot of weightlifting, a lot of power exercises, and that I still do that, but it's geared more towards now longevity and trying to protect the muscles of your body and allow them to withstand a very difficult schedule. So that's the main change. And then probably as I've gotten older, I've probably skated a little bit less in the summer. Just for anyone that's
25-30 minutes a night over 82 games. That's how you've adapted.
Yeah, it takes a toll on the body, and you realize that you're on the ice minimum 6 days a week during the NHL season, whether that's practice or games. And so you have to be careful about your training load in the summer, and that's just something that changes as you get older, I think.
Absolutely. Do you remember the 4th of July party we had at Ryan Kessler's house?
Of course.
Do you remember the flower party we had?
Of course, yeah.
That was 4th of July one year, and we're over at his house in the backyard and everything. And I don't even know how that started, but
Pour Some Sugar on Me came on, and they couldn't find sugar, so they went with flour.
And we started literally throwing flour all over his kitchen.
Yeah. Well, he started it.
Yes.
So
correct.
we just joined in.
Yes. So with that, how's the golf game? Been out there at all?
No. I played maybe a week to 2 weeks before the season shut down, and then everything is closed out here. So I'm chipping golf balls in the backyard, stay on top of things. But so to answer your question, it'd probably be pretty bad right now.
Not great.
Yeah.
Speaking of golf, I am not the greatest golfer. I mean, I don't really put time or effort into it. I've never really have, but I would like you to tell the story about when we were playing in Windsor, and it was myself, you, and Taylor Hall playing, and we were at the first tee, and there was maybe like 7 to 10 people kind of just standing around waiting to get out on the course. And I come up to you, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, so, well, just so everyone understands, this is like a pretty swanky country club in Windsor. You know, this is no pile of dirt. Like this is the top course. Yeah, it's a nice course. And it's one of those places where the first tee is just a little bit removed from the clubhouse. So people walking by or people in the clubhouse are going to have a look at people teeing off. And I just remember I was standing there and Kenny came up to me very like kind of nonchalantly and whispered in my ear. He goes, "Cam, I am so nervous right now." and I mean, Kenny and I have known each other for a long time, but I just lost all control of everything. I couldn't handle it. And that put you in an unfair position because going into that shot, there was there's just no way that anything good was going to come out of the shot. And I won't say exactly what happened, but it wasn't a great display.
Kim, I mean, just lay it out there.
We're hitting driver, and there was a decent amount of turf that exploded off the tee. I don't specifically remember where or if there was contact.
I'm pretty sure I hit the ball, and like some magical way, like a bunch of grass and dirt came up. The ball just kind of went up in the air, and the tee went like 7 feet up. And nothing else happened. Yeah. And I just remember turning around and just being like, "Well, that went pretty well." And,
you know what? I am an avid golfer, and there are first tee jitters like that just cannot be explained.
Make me feel better about this.
I'm being like I play quite a bit, and I played in my men's club championship, and I was as nervous as I've ever been in my life, and I topped my first tee shot. So like it can happen to anybody, and you didn't play that much. Like it was just the perfect storm.
You said it so well. I just remembered I thought it was just going to be the three of us. We're out there, and I start seeing people kind of coming around and just coming up to you and just going, something bad is going to happen. But
we had fun. We had fun.
That was good. Tell me a little bit about your charity. You have C4 Kids and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so my wife and I started C4 Kids at the end of last season, and being here, having some solid foundation here, we wanted to make more of an impact in the community. So we started C4 Kids in hopes of kind of spreading it in a variety of different directions. Right now we are working with kids who have gone through a program through the Ducks that's allowing them to play hockey, to pay for some of the ice bills, the equipment bills. I mean, you know as well as I do how expensive hockey is as a sport. So starting out trying to give kids in the area an opportunity to play, and then from there hopefully grow the game a little bit in California, especially in the little pockets of California, you know, the Anaheim area, the Orange area, basically try and spread that throughout Orange County as best we can. And then there's a few ideas that Jazz and I have to try and grow this thing, but it's all about the kids, trying to help them out as best we can.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you're making a great impact in the, you know, the community out there, and you know, doing your best to, you know, bring hockey to people that wouldn't have access to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Just kind of circle it all back here and, you know, close it out. If the Cam Fowler now, if he was talking to Cam at 7 or 8 years old, and you know, he's got his whole playing career in front of him, you know, from a development standpoint, you know, what's important? You know, you always hear about these 8, 9, 13, 14-year-old kids that, you know, may not make a fall team, or might not play AAA, or, you know, they didn't make that select team, or whatever the process may be. You know, you're a guy who's been through it all, some ups and downs, you know, your own internal battles. You know, what type of advice would you give for something like that?
Yeah, well, I would say the biggest thing, and it's hard to do nowadays because there's a lot of pressure on kids now, but just don't lose the overall joy of the game. You know, whether you do have the opportunity to play on the top team, or say you get bumped down a little bit, you know, at the end of the day, you're getting to play hockey, which we all love. That's why we started to play. And the biggest thing I would say to myself growing up was, you know, take it easy on yourself. You know, don't put too much pressure on yourself. You know, you're a kid. You're here to have fun. Obviously, you want to win and compete, but as you get older, there's more pressure that comes along with it. So those are the glory days when you can, you know, like
Enjoy the
times with you,
process. Yeah.
times with you and Lynchy and all the guys that we grew up playing with. You know, I don't think we ever took it too serious. Like, we were just happy to be out there playing with one another, and of course we wanted to win. But
Right.
I worry a little bit about the pressure on kids nowadays, and I just think the main thing is to play the game that you love because you love the game, and focus on that, and the rest will fall into place.
For sure. I mean, there's so much training now, and you know, I think one of the really unique and awesome things about, you know, working with Brian Rolston and the academy is, you know, we have our lessons, the kids have their schooling, but we have access to the ice from, you know, 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. So once all their work is done, it's like going out and playing shinny. These kids can be out there for, you know, 2, 3, 4 hours and just skating around. And, you know, I felt like when we were growing up, that's where, you know, we had the most fun. The unorganized, you know, pond hockey, playing in the backyard, and that's where you know, you find, you know, skills that you didn't know you had, and then you work on perfecting things. But, you know, just the creativity, and, you know, like you said, the pressure these days, and just, you know, letting the game evolve as you grow up. Yeah, you said it very well. So
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know, just quickly, if you remember, but at the program, like after we came back from Worlds, you know, they kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit, and you can somewhat be a normal person.
Right,
but we would go to the rink, and we took our cages off. We went out there and we just hammed it up out there, and I've never laughed so hard in my life. Those were so fun times, man.
It was there's no care, there's no structure, it's just free ice, and you know, that's what it's all about. So well, that's awesome.
Somebody would hop in goal. You know, there were fake fights all over the place. It was but you're absolutely right. I mean, the structure that you guys have in place for these kids is amazing, and this is an opportunity that you and I probably wish we had when we were growing up.
I mean, I tell my parents that all the time. I'm like, could you imagine if, you know, we would have had something or access to, you know, academy like that, or, you know, what it is in today's world of, you know, training. And I think it's awesome that these kids have the opportunity to. I mean, if you're 10 years old or 14 or whatever it may be, and you get a chance to go to school, but also go on the ice. I mean,
Oh
what a time. So,
yeah, for sure.
but hey man, I hope you're doing well, and hopefully this season gets back going here, and you're staying healthy and getting your body to where it wants to be, and have a big summer here, and come back ready to go. But
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you coming on here and taking your time to do this with me, and excited for you to get back this summer, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, buddy.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
thanks, Cam.
All right, bud.